Hey everybody, welcome to week 5 of the ESL Hearthstone Legendary Series, brought to you by Newegg, Western Digital Crucial, and Cooler Master. My name is Frodan, and today I'm once again joined by Azumo, and today we have such a treat for you guys, and today the stakes start to increase here, TJ.
Yes, they do. The winner from here on out, weeks 5 through 8, gets an automatic invite to that $20,000 land final that will happen in February. So there's a lot on the line for these players, and GVG's starting to pick up. We're starting to see some newer decks. We're starting to see some really great play as well. And we're a little bit festive here. As you guys may have noticed just a second ago, you saw stockings.
Right, happy holidays to everybody
yes,
who's
indeed.
enjoying their time off. If you aren't rewarded for GVG packs for Christmas, I feel a little bad for you. I definitely got a few packs in my stocking. Hope you guys are enjoying the decor. Hope you guys are having a good time too with the expansion. We're about a week and a half in. It's hard to believe that it's only been like 10 days since the release.
Yeah.
But already we're starting to see some small innovations here and there. And the list of players that you saw on your screen today, I'm very excited for.
Yeah, and the first matchup is going to be Tides of Time versus Zalae. So a name that you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with in Tides. And, of course, Zalae, who actually made it all the way through the Challenger Finals yesterday, all the way through the open bracket from last Sunday, made it to the top 4. And yesterday he had a pretty good showing. And we'll have to see if he can hold his own against some of the bigger names out there.
Sure, makes sense. The way that this is going to break down for anybody who's tuning in mid-series or mid-season, we have a 12-week-long broadcast. If you guys have more information, you can go to esl.gg/legendary series and find out how everything works. This week, the way it happens is the first place winner, gets a direct seed to the grand finals happening in February 21st and 22nd. Dates are still tentative. We're still figuring out the finals dates, but it's going to be for $20,000 where first place gets $10K. It's a lot of money. And today we find out one player who gets in it guaranteed.
Yeah, and this is a pretty big deal, especially for the guys that are coming from the open bracket, because getting a chance to be flown out to the studios, getting a chance to compete for some big money, all from just entering a tournament on a Sunday with a lot of players that's free to enter. And it's a long process, but if you're good enough and you have what it takes, then you can make it through, and it's the dream for some of these players.
I mean, ESL is offering a travel step-in for a lot of these players, so it's just basically a trip to California.
Yep.
It's a cool experience to be part of it, and you too can also sign up. Again, that link, esl.gg/legendary series. And you might be wondering why week 5, the first place seed goes directly into it, while the first 4 weeks don't have it. But that's because we didn't want to offer a way for the first few people who get in to have an advantage points-wise, because we're going to have 4 players who get in through points, 4 players who get in through direct seed by winning weeks 5 through 8. That's going to start today. We also want to give a shout out to the people who helped make this $20,000 event possible at Newegg, Western Digital, Crucial, and Cooler Master. You can check out all of their cool stuff through their great deals at newegg.com or at the link you see below at /Newegg Esports on ESL's website. So our first match of the day will be Tides of Time versus Zalae, like you mentioned. This one's very exciting for me personally because I've yet to see Tides be able to come out with a strong performance since joining Cloud9. He had an appearance at DreamHack, he had an appearance at Kingwin, and Tides is primarily known for being a strong deck builder on top of a great player with strong execution. So I think a lot of expectation has been placed on his shoulders for going to Cloud9 since leaving Tempo Storm, and everyone knows he's a proven tournament winner. He can definitely bring it, but he hasn't since GVG's release, and I think this is the time for him to shine.
Yeah, and on the other side, Zalae, he had a little bit of a rough time making it through that Challenger Finals yesterday. It was a very long day, 7 hours of Hearthstone playing. We'll have to see if that's going to affect him or if it's going to give him a little bit of extra experience with the format, a little bit of extra confidence going into today. But he's got a tough road ahead of him. You could see the decks, and I couldn't remember the first matchup. I didn't look at it long enough. But
I believe it's Warlock versus Warrior.
Okay,
and that's going to start things off. We know Zalae likes handlock. Tides was watching the VOD a little bit yesterday, so maybe he's in tune with how Zalae likes to play handlock, and I don't think he's going to backtrack on it now, although we're about to find out. Tides, of course, one of the best Warrior players in the entire region, and he's been one of the primary innovators for that class, along with Kit Kats and a few other players like Sho, who's also specializing in Warrior too.
Yeah, a lot of those popular Warrior decks that you've seen across the ladder over the past couple months have been at least contributed to by Tide. So Zalae bringing out the handlock once again. And this is an okay start for Tides. He doesn't really have any way to consistently gain this armor for these shield slams, but at least he's got some removal in his hand for some of these big threats.
Well, he just picked one up. He's got Armor Smith. He sees the pass, which heavily implies it's handlock.
Yeah.
Very, very rare that they're ever on the coin they pass and they're aggressive zoo. And it's a hard question. Do I armor up so that way I can gain advantage through shield slams?
Yeah.
Or do I play the Armor Smith and invest in it so that way, you know, I have board and plus it becomes a little bit stronger?
Yeah. The potential of armor versus the immediate armor. And he does pick up a shield block, so that's going to be a-okay for those shield slams to be able to be of use. Now on the other side, Zalae's hand, he does have some big threats going on, and Zalae had an interesting text the other day in his deck, or yesterday in his decks. At least in his warrior deck, he actually ran 2 BGH. I doubt that'll happen in handlock because you have more ways to deal with it.
You have siphons, so
yeah,
everything like that. So.
But he's very consistently putting things in his deck to specifically counter out popular decks right now, like the double BGH.
Right. Well, he had an opportunity to play something, but his hand's not looking very good in terms of dropping something ideal for turn 3. So he just passes to avoid tapping into an overdraw.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, that does give Tides the availability of building up a little bit of armor. So normally on turn 3, you drop a Farseer, you even drop an Ancient Watcher. You challenge their armor a little bit because then they're just unworried. But hopefully, in this case for Zalae, he has a way to recover because this Giant's going to be taken down very quickly.
Especially when you're on the coin as well. You have a little bit more wiggle room as far as putting out an earlier threat, especially against Warrior, to start chipping away. And this is just going to get taken care of pretty easily.
Insta call. I mean, there's no real need to think this one out.
Nope. Not at all. And no real follow-ups to this one. Doesn't have the second Mountain Giant.
No.
Doesn't have really any straightforward plays here. And he's got 10 cards in his hand.
Exactly. How do you do this without just committing like a Iron Beak Owl on the Armor Smith where you're like, well, cool, I wasn't really gaining armor through that anyways. And I'm past the threshold where I don't really need any more armor.
Or throw out a BGH, which you know is going to be useful later on, especially against Control Warrior.
Yeah, you can't throw this BGH out. Almost willing to part ways with the Defender of Argus just because.
Yeah.
I think you don't want to pass. Here's another thing too. If you Iron Beak Owl, you can't even tap because if you tap, you might draw. You're most likely going to draw into a card you can't use, and you're going to overdraw anyways.
Yeah. And he would have only had 1 mana remaining, so it's like, what's Mortal Coil? That's not going to help you. Mortal Coil your own Owl, and then you're in the same position where you're going to overdraw next turn. So
yeah,
no
not
good
get
spot.
too wild with creative plays like that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Shield Maiden, very strong, sturdy card. It challenges so much of what Handlock can do now.
Yeah.
It's not easy to remove at all.
And you don't want to use you never want to use like a Siphon Soul on a Shield Maiden. Because you're only getting rid of you're getting rid of the body, but you're not even getting rid of most of the value that comes from that card in general. And there's going to be so many other fantastic targets that you can use that on later.
Yeah, and it's not like a Soulfire Mortal Coil isn't even possible anymore.
Yeah.
Because most of these handlocks, I'm pretty sure all of them, don't run Soulfire anymore.
Yeah. We saw 3 handlock decks being run yesterday and a few the week before. So since GVG came out, we have not seen a Soulfire. We saw 1 Zoo, and it did run Soulfire, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
We did see a Zoo player. And I want to say it was Frozen who was playing it.
Yeah, it was. So
because Soulfire seems to fit Zoo's style and tempo a lot better.
Yeah.
Versus Handlock, you miss crucial power turns because Soulfire is clogging your hand.
Yeah. And now you have Dark Bomb to throw in there as well.
So that way you're not even discarding useful cards in the matchup. So it's an appropriate switch.
Now, how often do you see a Defender of Argus Zombie Chow in Handlock?
Well, you see that combination if you're desperate against aggro.
Yeah.
Or in this case, you're desperate for reaching for plays. I mean, there's really nothing that he could have done here otherwise. He still has none of his usual mid-range threats. His best play next turn will be for a Dr. Boom, but even then, that still gets challenged by what's on board. You have a few minions that can just pick it apart.
This is looking pretty good for Tides right now. High armor total, still removal in his hand. And he's got some threats to play as well as card draw. And he's putting Zalae on the ropes here, and can be one of the problems. Well, this doesn't happen very often as handlock, where you just have a full hand and just nothing to play. And I guess Dr. Boom is just the only thing that he can do. Well, he can tap, but then he'd be forced into a situation where he's just maybe only has to play a Zombie Chow, which could be bad.
Right, Dr. Boom's his highest impact. Fortunately, Tides does have an opportunity to deal with it pretty easily. It's all about how he wants to approach it, though. Is it worth dropping an Acolyte to try to absorb some of this damage and draw a card at all, or like, I mean, how do you go about this exactly?
It could be, but then again, at the same time, you're sort of risking not gaining as much value out of that Acolyte as you could, because, well, this is a lot better because you're putting another target on the board for those boom bots to go for, but at the same time, you're still getting value out of that Acolyte. Oh,
so Tides also plays a Sneasel Shredder.
Wow. Well, we saw Bunny Muffins do that in the Challenger Finals yesterday with little to no success. He didn't win a single game, and it was a little unfortunate.
Oh, perfect. Perfect for Tides. I mean, he just well, sorry, bro. That's exactly what I wanted. And that was what he was accounting for, too.
Zalae gives him the thumbs up, and Tides goes, not bad, not bad.
Well,
indeed.
keep in mind, again, these guys are on a call together, so they can see each other's reactions, and sometimes it's not the prettiest.
Yeah.
All right, well, that cool Taskmaster already served its purpose. Tides still floats at a pretty comfortable armor amount, and he's be able to draw more cards with some decent pressure. This is a very good spot again for the Warrior.
Yeah, that was a pretty fantastic way of being able to deal with that Dr. Boom, and you can't really ask for anything more. Can't really ask for anything more from those boom bots. They were on Tides this time.
I could ask for a little bit more. Maybe you could kill off the Acolyte if you're going to hit it, or at least do significant damage to the armor, or at least kill off like the Sludge Belcher buttons.
Yeah. Nope. Nothing. None of that happened. None of that happened.
Well, this is one of the weaknesses of Handlock sometimes.
Yeah.
As much as Handlock's a great deck, very well-rounded and consistent, sometimes it just draws a lot of its situational cards that helps improve its board a little bit. So like his second Defender of Argus, or even his Zombie Chow, so that way he's better against aggro. He had to tap many cards in order to get to his third reasonable card. He's had one Mountain Giant, he's had a Sludge, he's had Dr. Boom.
Dr. Boom.
And he's had the Sludge Belcher. So like those are like the three cards that he has to just plop on the board, but it's still very deep. And he's thinking about playing Hellfire here instead.
This is probably the best option for him at this point, but still, he needs to be able to draw into those threats because he could get in a situation where he has all these situational reactive cards in his hand where if you get to a situation where you're drawing Mountain Giant and Twilight Drake so late in the game, they're so much less effective at that point. Because throwing out like a 4/4 Twilight Drake or throwing out like a 10 mana Mountain Giant is never something that feels really good in most situations like game.
Alright, well, I don't see a reason not to drop the Sneeds. He's already used an Owl. And if he uses an Owl on this, that means your Sylvanas is much higher impact. Right?
Yes, it is.
So Sneeds is going to be drawing away some heat. And now it's not like as simple as, well, let's just Owl and Giant, because I might die next turn too.
Yeah.
Like you might have to play a Sludge Belcher while dealing with this Sneeds, if you deal with it at all. Maybe just like let it go for a little bit because it still has to die before the Legendary activates.
Yeah.
This is an uncomfortable position.
Yeah, it's a little bit awkward, and he's got to think this one through. And Zalae from yesterday, we sort of got a little bit of an idea of his playstyle, and he's very conservative with his plays a lot of times. He'll always take the safe play out. He'll always take the safe route. So he made like one risk yesterday, and the one risk that he didn't make didn't pay off at all. And so I can imagine that he's going to go back to playing that passive style. And he goes ahead and silences the Sneed and throws out the Sludge Belcher. That's going to keep him safe. And, well, Tides has a pretty good hand himself as well. He's got BGH ready. He's still got a pretty high armor total to be able to utilize this removal. And I'm sure he'll be happy with the position that he's in right now in this game.
Yeah, seems pretty decent. I mean, again, this Sneeds is still It's like another body on the board to just add to the Grommash threat.
Yeah.
So that way you can float your opponent's health at a decent amount, above 10, so that way Molten Giants aren't free.
Yeah.
And then you have the ability to also still kill off whatever's on board while threatening to kill. So it's like a very good mixture of it. I mean, Tides is making sure to balance the health. And then Zalae, in the meantime, needs to find a way to be defensive again while still being able to take care of the board. Because there's still enough pressure on the board where it's like, well, he has a Fiery War Axe. He's got 11 damage. There's a very realistic possibility I might die even if there isn't a Grommash. Maybe there's just Ragnar's removal and I die.
He's finally drawing into these Twilight Drakes, though. He finally picks up one, but as you mentioned, at this point, it's just so tough to put out threats while still making sure that you're going to be safe. And when the Warrior player's in control like this, when they can pretty much control the board as well as like how much health you have, and they're sort of the ones in control of when you're going to be able to put down those Molten Giants. If you're not the one drawing into your threats, then it could put you in a little bit of an awkward spot where you need to put out pressure, but at the same time you risk just dying. And this is sort of a similar turn as last turn, where he's just sort of throwing out that Sledge Belcher. And he's got pretty good ways to deal with this.
Yep. Still doesn't have the Grommash. Tides was still on draw to win the game right there. Fortunately, it has not come around though. He does have ways to deal with this board, and I think he can. Excuse me. I think he can part ways with the Shield Slam here.
Yep.
Because he's got a Big Game Hunter and an Execute, so he's still got ways to deal with giants and big minions. And he already killed Dr. Boom without using the Big Game Hunter, so I think Tides is okay using Shield Slam here. And then you can use the second charge of Fire War Axe, or you can even start building on the Death Bite threat too. So there's several options at Tides' disposal here.
I think he wants to utilize this removal to keep applying more pressure, because you don't really want to let up. You want to keep putting the Warlock into weird spots. Right. You want to limit the amount of plays that he has, and sitting back and playing even somewhat passively at this point as the Warrior, when you're in this position where you're sort of dictating the pace of the game and dictating the board, then you really want to just keep the pressure on, and you can throw out those removals a little. You don't have to be conservative at all with them.
Okay. So he is dishing it out, but he's holding back on his Fiery War Axe. Again, you don't want to necessarily throw it out to his opponent's health total, so that way he lowers the Molten Giant costs. He's always keeping the impending threat of saying, well, even if he Jiraxis has like Mortal Coil, and they'll also have damage to kill him. So it's a very good hold off. And of course, keeping a high count of cards always scares your opponent too. So then back over in Zalae land, he's got ways to deal with the board, but everything is very expensive. It's like Dark Bomb and Siphon Soul. Like that's the play. You have to use it on minions that are honestly suboptimal here.
15 health is such a good place to keep that Warlock, because it makes his Molten Giant turns not that great, and it also makes it so Jiraxis does nothing. Pretty much just uses an entire turn and gives him the ability to attack for 3. And, well, Alex Strauza, maybe not the best in the situation, but it's still a big threat that can be put on the board.
Well, he's got Big Game Hunter, so that's one way to easily deal with everything here that's on the board, the Molten Giants. Then how do you follow that up too? Because you're still short in damage from killing him, right? You have 9 damage or 4 damage off lethal.
It's gonna be it's a little bit rough, but he could develop the Death Bite a little bit. He might not want to show his cards early, but even just armoring up wouldn't be the worst choice in the world, because he's still putting on pressure. And now that he's at 13 health and he's seen a Molten Giant, he's thinking about attacking here to put on a little bit more pressure. And
yeah, I think it's fine setting up setting up a weapon. The question becomes though, does he attack in with the Sludge Belcher? So he holds off once again.
Oh no.
Oh, never mind.
I think
fake out. Spectator mode fake out.
When you see one Molten Giant like that, I think you can
more liberal.
Yeah. because you know that he's not going to have a huge swing turn. He's not going to be able to like double Molten Giant, Defender of Argus, or double Molten Giant and then Shadow Flame one of them. And if you put him that low health and he double Molten Giants, he can even like Siphon Soul a big threat or something like that. There's so many options when there's 2 left on the table.
Well, what's nice about you know, attacking with the minion as opposed to a weapon is that you don't lose the damage.
Yeah.
That Sludge Belcher is repetitive damage.
Yeah.
So you don't lose much. Versus attacking with a weapon, like to the face, you lose that damage. So if he healed back up with Anti-Healbot or Jiraxis,
okay,
you don't effectively threaten as much.
Whoa.
Gosh, well, again, you know, this is something to be said of like people who ever wonder why do you cut a second Defender of Argus, or why you even cut the second Siphon Soul. It's because sometimes you just want something else. Maybe you want a Black Knight there instead, right? Or you see players have Alexstrasza sometimes, because then you have Alexstrasza to play, or you know, even Dr. Boom. Sometimes that's one of the things you cut.
Now he has to throw down Anti-Killbot and Ancient Watcher because he just had to tap for more answers, and he couldn't even throw up a taunt.
I mean, he's still alive because Tides doesn't have the damage to kill him. He's got 11, 13 damage. That's 3 off of killing him.
Still hasn't drawn into the Grommash yet.
Yep. I mean, it's okay because you still just put out a big threat here, and you start pressuring a little bit more. You can even line up the weapon for the second charge by killing this off. You already used both of your shield slams, so
yes,
armor's
indeed.
a little bit. It's less impact.
And now you can just go face willy-nilly because you know that if he didn't have the Molten Giant last turn and he had to tap and roped trying to find an answer and use the Anti-Keelbot as well is a dead giveaway that he doesn't have the second Molten Giant in his hand. You don't have to play around those at all at this point.
So here's like a hard question again. It's like, how do you deal with this because you're at 8 health? Even if you Siphon Soul and taunt up, you die. If you beat GH and taunt up, you still only have 1 taunt and you're at 8 HP. So this feels like no matter what, like a zero-sum game. No matter what, he's gonna die. Actually, no, sorry. Zero-sum game means nobody wins. I guess this means like a. Well, help me out here. I took econ, but I totally fell asleep during this part of the lecture.
I don't know.
A one-sided game. Is that what it is?
That seems
a
such
moot point.
A moot point for Zalae at least. This works. I was gonna say he could either Shadow Flame to try and remove or use the BGH and then Siphon Soul, but either of those plays just doesn't seem that great.
Wow. Tides is still 1 damage off of killing his opponent. Alright. Well, Sylvanas is fine, because remember, he already did use both of his owls.
And if he siphons this, then he's giving him a Watcher, which seems okay.
But
he's got an
Iron Beak owl, right?
He's going to use the...
How hilarious is that?
That's pretty hilarious.
Does that actually kill him? It does.
It would.
Because if you siphon this Sylvanas, she takes control of the Ancient Watcher, you silence it, you have 9 damage, plus the 2 from Cool Taskmaster, and that's gonna be game.
That would be game. That's pretty insane.
Unless wait, is it possible for him to survive if he just plays Jiraxis? Second Ancient Watcher.
It would be.
Alright, well, he's going to try and see if he can keep it alive as long as he can. Although, I think there might be a way for him to still kill here.
If he kills one of the Ancient Watchers.
No, he is. Just silence one of the Ancient Watchers, execute the other, and kill.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a lethal no matter what. Looks like Tides will take game number 1 then here. Finally being able to press in for the advantage from Warrior. Threatening for so long. Finally able to do it. Just has to use any combination of silence and execute here. I think he's just also see if he can conceal. Oh. Yeah, no, conceal the owl. So you can just use your weapon here to swing, and then you don't even have to give up the information about your owl. So well done. This is going to wrap up game number 1.
That was just a really rough game for Zalae from the get-go.
Yeah, for sure.
Tides was on.
Where was all of his threats?
At the bottom of his deck. Well, his threats actually came out. By the end of the game, he actually used everything but one of his Molten Giants and one of his Twilight Drakes. He just didn't draw
Yeah.
them timely enough. He
True.
used both Mountain Giants, but they were just so far apart.
That's just a really good point.
Yeah, they were just really far apart, and he drew them. He drew the second one at a time where he was just desperately trying to gain back any sort of control over the board, and it was just too late at that point.
All right, well, that goes straight into game number 2. Now, again, this format has changed up a little bit from what you're used to. Immediately, we shift over to another matchup. These guys brought 3 decks. There's no bans, and they predetermined the lineup beforehand. Game number 4 and 5 are blind pick, where they're able to play whatever class they want as many times as they want.
Yeah, it's very similar to a ladder style. So you have to pick and bring 3 decks that you know are going to be pretty strong against whatever your opponent can throw at you. And you can't necessarily try and bring a deck that specifically counters something else.
Right.
Unless you're really confident in your ability to predict the order that your opponent's going to play their decks. And even then, you don't know what they're playing until you're in the game and seeing them play their cards. So it can be a little rough, but I like these guys' lineup. And Tides is bringing the decks that you thought yesterday would be the most popular.
I thought that they would be the ones that were chosen. I think Warlock is really good. But Tide surprisingly chooses not to bring it. Props to him. But I really thought Mage, Paladin, and Warrior were also the 3 other classes that were really strong. And I was surprised no one was really bringing Paladin. You know, we saw it once.
Saw 1 Paladin yesterday
But,
and 0 Mages yesterday.
All right, Tides is not clearly he's not familiar with the format. It's Warrior versus Warrior. He actually needs to switch classes, which is amusing because, well, I guess he didn't do his homework on what kind of tournament it is.
Well, he has to submit the order for his decks, so.
Right, he did too.
Okay.
All
right.
And it's it's just an innocent thing. It's not like on purpose at all. It's
Maybe he just clicked the wrong deck or something.
Yeah,
we'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. And this is because normally you're used to last hero standing, where if you win, you stay on a deck. And then what happens is one of the biggest criticism against that format is then you have a wheel of counters. You have, well, I have an anti-warrior druid, and it's like, well, and then I have an anti-druid handlock myself, and then I have an anti-handlock hunter, and then I have an anti-hunter priest, and then it's like, well, I won the first game, so I have a decisive advantage.
Yeah.
This is trying to remove a little bit of the barrier that just is hard for ladder players to enter because they're not used to it. And the second is trying to bring more diversity because the way that it was explained was if you have so many counter-fest heavy metagame with like tournaments, then what happens is people start skewing their decks to be really greedy. You have like double Big Game Hunter, Black Knight, Harrison Jones. And it's like that doesn't get away with it on ladder at all. If you skew everything to have more of an honest build, then you have closer percentages rather than just blowout wins because then it's like, well, I just win because I have the exact cards I tech to beat this deck.
And you still have room for some greedy or interesting tech choices.
Right.
But you have to be a little bit more conservative with your choices because you have to make sure that you're going to be good against all decks instead of just, well, countering whatever you think the opponent's going to bring in the tournament so you can pick it as a counter deck because that just doesn't exist.
I mean, I think Tides is pretty happy with this matchup too. Paladin is great against Warrior, generally speaking. Maybe not with an opening like this. If Tides' hands improves a lot more, it would be great. But Zalae has a very strong opening right now.
Well, I saw the Harrison come into Tide's hand right at the end there. You can see that on your screen. So that's a fantastic card against Warrior. And I would think that's actually a pretty decent to have in your opening hand. There's a lot more early game cards that Paladin has, like Muster for Battle, Shielded Mini-Bot, Knife Juggler if they're putting that in. But I still think that Harrison can be a pretty great card to put in your opening hand. He mulliganed away for it. Well, not specifically for it, but it was not in his opening hand originally. But I don't think he'll be too sad about seeing that.
Ooh, so Tides, instead of playing the Shielded Mini-Bot, opts to Hero Power instead. What do you think about that?
We saw that actually a lot yesterday, where players would have a decent turn 2 or turn 3 play, and would just forego playing any minions just to get more hero powers out on the board. And I guess maybe he didn't want the Divine Shield to just be broken easily by Armorsmith, but at the same time, it's just going to happen the same again this turn. But hero powering as much as possible in this matchup is never a bad thing. I don't think.
Well, it's also evaluating the timing of weapons too. Because
Yeah.
if you hero power on 2, he's likely not to play a weapon. If you hero power, if you play like the shielded mini bot and then he weapons out on turn 2, then he's most likely going to use it or hold it on turn 3. Then you have an opportunity to Harrison it. I think the timing of it's like very specific and it's pretty cool. This is a very nice combination too from Zalae. He's able to draw a couple cards, get some more armor, and even set up this Fiery War Axe. Yeah. And one of the ways that warriors can take a big advantage over Paladin is through seizing the board pretty early. But fortunately for Tides, he's got a clear here with Consecration. It's almost an instant call.
You have Consecration or True Civil Champion to be able to stop whatever you have going. But like you said, if you're able to make that early board stick and make Armor Smith and Acolyte of Pain and small cards go a long way, is the big difference.
So this is definitely a tough moment for Zalae to swallow. He doesn't have a direct play to put a minion on the board, which means he's already going to play catch-up if his opponent starts hero powering, or plays a minion that he can't directly remove. Because next turn, he can't Shield Maiden and remove like a Sludge Belcher. He has to play Shield Slam plus like a 5 minion. So the best thing he can draw right here is like a Sludge Belcher himself.
Yikes.
So now it's like another conundrum. It's like, do I play a minion which he can easily challenge and he might be able to benefit off of, or do I do something else? Now the good thing is Shield Maiden does challenge this 3/5 body, but you never know what Paladin might have up their sleeve.
Yeah, when you're playing that without the initiative, then it can be a little rough. But that was the only real play he had that turn. Right. Getting a second Despite from the shield block when he already has a weapon equipped. Right. And now Tide's just going to put out these big threats one by one. And he's playing catch-up already. Since he was the second one to get initiative on the board, then he's got to deal with the threat from last turn while also worrying about the threat that was placed on this turn. And Dr. Boom is not an easy threat to deal with.
Well, it is when you have just a 12 damage shield slam.
Yeah.
But
still got to worry about the boom bots, though.
It is worrisome, especially considering the boom bots can easily just pick up the remains of the Shield Maiden, which might encourage you to play this Armor Smith as well to absorb some of the blows.
I would say so.
But then I guess Dr. Boom then absorbs not only removal, but it kills off a minion and also threatens whatever comes out. So
the boom bot value.
And here's another wild thing: if you leave the boom bots to your own devices, do you see what synergizes directly in Tide's hand with that?
The Cult Master.
Cult Master. So you would draw and kill off things.
I like the Cult Master edition because there's.
Oh man, that was a very good outcome for Zalae.
Yes, it was.
Gets to save his shield block and only lost some of his armor.
I'd say he'd be pretty happy with that, and this sort of gets. Well, it puts him back in the game, and he's also able to efficiently use that second charge of Fire War Axe to open up opportunities to develop one of those Despite next turn to not have those sit dead. And of course, only having to use it on the slime, he does preserve quite a bit of his armor to be able to make Shield Slam a little bit more of a viable option next turn. And Tides just decides to hero power, doesn't even want to muster for battle.
Yeah. I was looking at Muster for battle, and I was just thinking about it. But it's a catch-22. If you use Musters for battle, then his Whirlwinds, his Deathbite becomes a lot better, and you can't Harrison Jones.
Yeah.
It pigeonholes you into a line of play where you might have to play suboptimally.
Yeah.
And so, because he realizes I'm the deck that has better longevity.
Yeah.
Against Warrior, then I can still take my time. And this is still annoying because it's like hero powering with Mage onto the Armor Smith, right? Effectively. And this is the scenario that he wanted to see. He was like, okay, well now I can get rid of a Despite. Muster for battle will be a little bit stronger, etc.
Yeah, that's good reasoning. I like that.
Yeah, it's very intelligent.
Because if you put out Muster for battle on that play, then you're playing around like him being able to just clear it off with like a second charge Despite. You're trying to get it out before the Despite comes out. But with Harrison in your hand, that completely changes the play.
So you think about dropping Tyrion here instead? The problem is if his opponent has Sylvanas and Shield Slam and steals Tyrion.
Yeah.
But then you have Silence on it too. And it's effectively like you silenced Sylvanas because there's only a 6-6 as opposed to a 5-5.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, this is probably stuff that's all going through his head. But
If you have a way to deal with it,
yeah.
then I would say throw it out. Well, you don't like Harrison here?
I mean, I'm just asking, do you think he's thinking about it? He's on 8 mana.
He might be, but
the sooner you throw it out, the better.
Judging by his last
board's
play,
not very good.
Judging by his last play and the read that you made on his last play, I think that he was wanting to play Harrison.
Yeah, I think
so.
It makes the most sense.
He might have been thinking about it just because you sort of have to consider that in the play, but I don't think
it's worth evaluating.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, here's the funny thing. The Death Bite to answer this Harrison Jones or stole the Death Bite.
Still get value out of that Harrison, though. It's good. But it's going to be really annoying for Tides' next turn.
Well, what's nice, too, is that because of the sequencing of things, Armor Smith also is getting pretty low. So at one point, the Whirlwind's going to kill off the Armor Smith, too, assuming this Armor Smith runs into the 1-1.
Yeah. Still getting pretty good value at Armor Smith. I guess you're not really trading it for anything concrete. He's just been using it as a hero power slayer.
Yeah.
The hero power killer. But he's gotten the armor that he's getting from that is actually sneaking up. It's getting pretty good, and it's sort of making up for what he's been attacked or what he will attack with this Death's Bite.
I mean, at this late into the game, it's really hard to play around the possibility that your opponent might shield slam you, because there's Shield Maiden, there's Shield Block, and then Armor Up. There's almost nothing in your entire arsenal that won't get immediately smited if he had that combination.
Double Muster for Battle. Worst card to play this turn right now.
What's the card on the far left? Is that Cult Master?
That's Cult Master.
I mean, he doesn't really need a draw anymore, even though it is a really nice combination. It's funny is that he's got a lot of situational cards, too, in his own hand.
Yep. Just throw out the Cult Master to try and eat the second charge at the Death Bite.
I feel like that's a little wasteful, considering that he can just attack Armor Smith into the 4-2. You basically give Armor Smith more value. I think Muster here is okay. You might force out the second charge of Death Bite. Not to mention, you're like implying that he has to attack this turn, or else he risks a Quartermaster. Because you know that his Brawl has been expired. Assuming he's running one Brawl. I mean, Zalae could have been easily stuck in a second Brawl for day number 2 to mix things up.
That's true. It's I think he actually switched around his decks a little bit too.
Right.
So it's a smart choice to change up your decks, especially since you know your opponents can scout from the day before.
Just go for it because this is the only thing that you have at your disposal.
Look, his hand is not that great. It's very situational.
Oof.
And he knows that next turn he'll be able to Sylvanas Shield Slam in like the case of an emergency to push more damage through. Because if he plays like a Taunt or Tyrion this turn, he's got a really great shot of winning, especially with that combination that he has in his hand. He also has an Owl. And BGH, so I like this play.
Yeah. Well, let's see how this works out. Tides does have ways to recover. He's got ways to even Aldar Peacekeeper. Do you want to True Silver after that so you can gain some life, or what? Like, this is still a little tricky.
He's going to go ahead and get that out of the way first, because he knows he's going to do that for sure. And True Silver Champion, he's hovering over that. I think that's the best line to play. You want to, well,
it's a little risky.
It is.
Just because you know that your opponent might have an ability to somehow get it back. There's, let's see, 4 damage remaining. Well, I don't see a way from the kill.
No.
But it can be a surprise lethal as the game develops. Realistically, Tides is still taking his sweet time and saying, I have equality in Consecration. I definitely want the board to be higher value, so I'm going to wait on it. It's one of those things, though, it's like, I just really hope he doesn't have like a Ragnaros and a Fiery War Axe remaining and then just try to go 50-50 to win.
You think about it though, and
it's pretty low percentage.
Very low percentage, especially since he's been through one of the Fire War Axes, and there was turns a little bit earlier where Rag might have been a better option. So,
well, that turn might have been if you just like Whirlwind Rag.
Yeah,
probably better.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't think he's really too worried about that. And he's got all those situational cards in his hand.
Right. Oh, that's a pretty nice draw
Yes,
here.
it is. That sort of fits the, like a missing spot in his hand right now, where he's got all these situational cards that are good, that are pretty good, but not really good, just played empty by themselves, where the Guardian of Kings just sort of fits that empty void.
He's got his own Shield Maiden.
Yes, he does, with a little bit better stats.
Or maybe like the Shield Maidens, like I would set a date up with Guardian of Kings and Shield Maiden. It's like they're perfect for each other. They just don't know it yet.
I don't think, is the Guardian of Kings actually
A dude?
a human?
Oh. Who cares?
Okay.
You don't know love.
The interspecies love of Guardian of Kings.
Look,
and
Warcraft's a
Shield Maiden.
very strange universe.
Yeah, well, I guess
Almost
Shield Maiden,
anything can work in there.
Shield Maiden is a dwarf. It's a dwarf female. So who knows? Who knows? Oh.
Size doesn't matter to Shield Maiden.
I guess not. I guess not.
Well, this is very awkward to say the least. I think you might have to proc execute here. The 1-2 is not really doing much other than challenging hero powers, and Gromash is still on recruit duty. So he's I think he's just gonna keep killing these 1-1s until basically he gets forced out. And this second big game hunter, you might as well toss one out. You might even lull him into a false sense of security, because he might feel like, okay, one big game hunter's been played, and if I have a legitimate big game hunter target, I can just throw it out that much easier.
I don't know if Paladins nowadays are even running any big game hunter targets.
Dr. Boom.
Dr. Boom and
It's already been dealt with, right?
like a Bolvar that's
A Bolvar.
that's been sitting in your
You're
hand
right.
for a while.
I haven't considered Bolvar.
That's about it. And well, they don't really run Rags anymore. I think Dr. Boom took the spot of Rag in a lot of those decks. Not that they're, well, I guess they're sort of similar in how they operate. But I like Dr. Boom better.
Okay. Well, I definitely agree with the one BG's being tossed out here. Tides is still like, I know you have like Alex Straza, I know you still have Ragnaros, I need to save this equality combination for something better. But it's just, it's almost too good to pass up, just like taking care of a board like this. And the nice thing about Muster for Battle is the synergy with cards like equality.
Yeah.
How are you supposed to catch up on board if you're going to use Muster here, and then hero power and just start attacking?
It's tough. He knows he's been through both Death Bites.
Right.
Whirlwind is still a possibility, just a straight up Whirlwind. But it's unlikely at this point. And it's so hard for Warriors outside of those two abilities to be able to deal with all these 1/1s.
The best thing that he can go, though, is Harrison Jones of some kind to start pushing it off, damage-wise.
This is rough.
It is rough, but he can start fighting back for the board a little bit. Or so he thinks. The problem is, even if he's able to deal with Tyrion, the first half of him, or I guess the back half, you can deal with the Ashbringer. He's still a 6/6 that's going to be threatening your armor and your board. And also, you're, in the back of your mind, very worried about Quartermaster, because you only can kill off 2 of these.
And even killing off 2 of them, it's not the most efficient way to kill off these 1/1s.
No.
I guess Cruel, at this point, since you've been through your Grommash, you don't really have any other reason to hold on to the Cruel Taskmaster. I think he's thrown out at least one Acolyte of Pain. And he might want to hold on to the Cruel Taskmaster to get BGH value later on if he...
Oh, you're right. That was actually a possibility. If he saved the BGH with the Cruel Taskmaster on Tyrion.
Tyrion, yeah.
That was an actual 3-card combination to deal with 1 card. You're right.
And then maybe he could throw in a Tyrion, or sorry, Harrison Jones to deal with the Ashbringer at the end.
Well, I have to imagine that Tides wants to equality, but he might even... Does he play Cult Master? No, there's no way to sequence it, right?
Yeah, you'd be giving up your Cult Master.
Right.
This is...
Oh, Tides. Mistake!
It's Zalae's face. He's like, what did you just do?
Uh-oh. Yeah, it's okay. It's a minor mistake. I guess it misses out on 2 damage.
Yeah.
He should smack this Gromosh, I suppose, right? Oh, I guess. Oh, sorry, the 2-1. It's just I was afraid of silence, because then it becomes a 4-9. If you silence Gromosh, it becomes like a super injured Blade Master.
A full health, power but shielded
Yeah.
Blade Master.
In fact, I think that. Well, I guess you still need a way to deal with Tyrion.
I don't think.
It's so tempting. It's like, like.
Well, your hand is so poor right now that
Right.
you can't be too conservative with what you have, or else you'll just fall way too far behind. But then again, at the same
Tyrion
time,
really locks you out of the game.
yeah,
Because then you're just.
yeah.
Unless you have Harrison Jones. I mean, if he had Harrison Jones, he would have already played it on the Muster for Battle.
Yep.
For sure. I mean, I'm not sure if Zalae even really needs to silence his own, because the rest of the mana won't be used. Alex Strauss is his best.
Whoa!
Oh, dude, that hurts. Oh, man. The equality with the Kel'Thuzad combination, that is the Paladin dream. And you know what?
Sledge Belchers for days.
That Gromosh has been through a lot.
Oh, and he doesn't even. Oh yeah, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, he just tosses out the end.
Yeah.
You don't want to equality before Kel'Thuzad.
Well,
Or, I mean, after Kel'Thuzad.
I was
comes
thinking
out.
he was gonna throw out the Kel'Thuzad
Oh,
after he qualified,
man.
but.
Well, I mean, Dr. Boom comes out, but Cult Master with Kel'Thuzad almost certainly locks out the rest of this game. He's going to draw almost every card in his deck. He's going to have every answer lined up. He's used both equality, sure, but even if Ragnaros or other like power swing cards come out, it's really difficult for Zalae to try and pick apart this board because he needs to somehow get to Kel'Thuzad, and he can't.
All right, well, he concedes out of this one, and Kel'Thuzad is. I like that card, especially in Paladin. If you can get it when you have board control, and you can dictate what you throw in, especially with a Sledge Belcher, it's so hard to get through a Sledge Belcher to begin with. Getting through multiple Sledge Belchers, GG.
It's like the ultimate King Me card.
It is.
That's right. It's just one of those things where it's like, well, this is the beginning of the end.
Like
If it can get down safely, it's sometimes the case where Kel'Thuzad just throws down because it's 6/8,
Yeah.
and it's hard to deal with. But in most scenarios where it's used, it's just locking you out of the game. And Zalae is down to his last life. This is single elimination. No longer 2 chances to advance. And it's looking like a pretty good matchup again for Tides. If this is the Mech Mage, I like the Mech Mage versus Druid.
I think the Mech Mage is a really great deck against Druid, and maybe the only. I haven't really had much experience with like a heavy ramp Druid against Mech Mage, but I'd imagine it just sort of go the same way. It just, as soon as you lose that board control early on, as soon as they start throwing out those really threatening mechs, especially like the Chugga Chugga, because that can stop a Druid in his tracks because he relies so much on his hero power early on to get him through to help remove those early minions. So you get into a spot where, against the Mech Mage, that it's just really tough. But this is not Mech Mage at all, Frodan.
Yeah, what is this?
It's the infamous Lilitheb anti-kill bot duplicate mage. We'll see what he gets. He threw it away.
Secrets Tempo Mage? It's gotta be, I mean, there's secrets, of course, but... Oh! It's Strife Crow's Mage. Where you're, like, playing really defensive and you grind out your opponent.
Well,
I don't know how this deck fares.
I have no idea. And this is an okay hand for Zalae, but he's got too many spells and too many situational cards, but he does have Wild Growth and Innervate.
Oh boy.
I don't think he knows what it is, but this could be an indication.
Oh man, this game can definitely be very weird and wonky. Especially if Duplicate goes down on the Sludge Belcher, because then how does Combo go through it efficiently? There's a very realistic possibility that Druid runs out of damage, but this is already a very grindy deck. I wouldn't be surprised to see, like, Ragnaros and Sylvanas in this deck either.
Yeah.
Like, just really annoying targets to play around Duplicate. Wow! Just more damage.
He's got nothing to do right now except Keeper. But
I don't even know if you keep her here.
it's so hard to. I guess he knows that it's probably the Strife Grow Mage if he's familiar with it, especially since they're on the same team, and I'm sure they talk about Mage a lot and try and innovate and strategize with Mage a lot.
Right.
Between Tides and Strife Grow, but at the same time, you don't know exactly what's in this deck, and you have to think that there's going to be a higher priority silence target for that keeper. But at the same time, your hand is terrible. You don't have much to do at all. So you have to throw something out there. Yep. And he actually goes for the damage.
Well, I mean, now he's able to clear the board. So it's like a 2-for-1 in direct value.
Yeah.
You already lost the card by playing Wild Growth, but you made up for it with the mana cost. You have Violet Teacher, but how do you even benefit off of this? Because you can't even kill off that Water Elemental.
I actually saw Tides streaming one time where he was playing this deck or a similar variation of this deck where he was criticizing his own play for throwing out both Unstable Ghouls. Why would he do that? Do you think it's bad to throw out 2 Unstable Ghouls at the same time, since they're sort of
I mean, I see it a lot like, I just see Unstable Ghouls a lot like Explosive Sheep or Whirlwind. It's just like super defensive. It plants your flag on the ground. Plus, he's not sure what kind of druid this is.
That's true.
Even
like
though there are a lot of druids mid-range, there are some druids starting to experiment with the mech. And if you seize it out early, like if he's waiting for those turns, like he holds till turn 3, and then Mech Warper, coin Mech Warper into like 2 free minions after that. Oh wow.
Violet Teacher.
He's gonna swipe. So he's just trying to generate as many tokens as possible.
Yeah. These could be hard to deal with in like a single turn for mages. They can start killing them off over time, but he really wants to try and put on pressure.
He's got Sludge Belcher.
Sludge Belcher does stop it in its tracks.
It's like, well, now you have the Force of Nature. Oh, I guess you can Wrath for 1. Or you might have to Wrath for 3. And it's really annoying that you can't Hero Power and attack. Do you have to... Oh, dude, you know, if you Force of Nature, you have to actually attack and kill off one of your 1/1s to do it. Is this a Savage Roar turn?
I think it's a Savage Roar turn. You're not getting... Well, Savage Roar is pretty good. You can attack with your face.
I think he's going to Force of Nature. Or he's going to Wrath.
Force of Nature.
Oh, okay. Well, very astutely realizing that he has to make room for it. If he just Force of Nature at the very beginning of the turn, he would have lost one of the treants.
Yeah.
So he's going to try and clear the board here.
Which, it's going to be pretty effective, but he throws away a lot of his tokens, and it makes the... Well, I guess the swipe is going to be worth it from last turn, being able to clear off the Water Elemental otherwise. Now he's going to be met with another Water Elemental, though, and...
Oh, he's got a duplicate, too. Next turn.
I think exactly what you said earlier is going to come into effect, where the Druid might just run out of damage. Because forcing to use that Force of Nature to just remove a Sludge Belcher and the remainders of a Water Elemental. He's got double combo, at least it seems so. We haven't seen the second Savage Roar yet, but I can only assume.
This Rat's pretty useful, though. Like,
Yes,
to remove the Water Elemental before duplicate is actually a pretty big deal. Then Tides has to pick up like another legitimate... Oh, wow, that's a really big draw.
Especially with Violet Teacher on the board.
Yeah.
It's going to give him that longevity that he needs.
I wonder if Tides... Oh, gosh. I wonder if Tides plays Flame Strike. Okay. This is starting to get interesting.
He opts to not kill the Water Elemental.
Yeah.
I guess knowing that if he...
Well, he's got combo.
Yeah. And if he duplicates, then he's not going to get that much value out of it, because you know that he has to trade with you next turn. Most likely because of how much threat your board poses. And of course, he wouldn't get any value to the Water Elemental for duplicate if he's the one that attacks in.
My shield for Argus.
Okay. That's pretty smart. Well,
I mean, you can silence your own Violet Teacher and attack into the Water Elemental right back.
yeah.
I think you can do that plus pressure. Or alternatively, you can Savage Roar.
Yeah, you have 2.
You can do both, actually.
I'm ready to learn.
Actually, that's not so bad. Do
and
it that way.
He is in a position where he can kill Tides next turn.
For sure. Tides has Ice Block, though.
That's true.
What Tides doesn't have is an AoE clear. I don't know if he cares about duplicate at this stage.
No, because he's playing so fast and putting on so much pressure at this point that spending that mana on a water elemental, which doesn't have any immediate effect on the board. Zalae is probably going to be happy with that.
Right. Well, I have to imagine that Tides will play Ice Block next turn. He's understanding what the combo is.
Yeah. It's not all that likely that he has. I guess just Savage Roar kills him next turn, so you sort of have to. It would be unlikely for him to have both Force of Natures and both Savage Roars.
Oh. Well, never mind.
Well,
He's dead.
he's dead.
I guess he's playing around that possibility, but Zalae actually did have double combo.
Yeah, I think this would play around just Savage Roar. Wait, yeah.
No, it's fine. You just silence Savage Roar, but
Yeah.
he's got both combos, so.
Wow. And just like that, I think that Ancient of Lore draw was huge for Zalae.
Yeah,
in the middle of the
really
game.
big. Well, he also had his second Innervate to
Yeah.
be able to do it. So
Yeah.
it was like, pretty much, I think, he also had a Wild Growth start. So, like, everything lined up ideal for Zalae, for sure.
His opening hand was pretty poor, but he drew into exactly what he needed at the right times. And Tides not expecting him to have both Force of Natures, both Savage Roars in his hand that quickly,
Sure.
but he did. At
Yep.
least he gets that little bit of intel for later on. He knows that he runs, since it's going to that blind pick phase, he knows that he runs double combo. Might play into his decision of what deck he chooses going into blind pick.
Yeah, it's tough because now you know that Druid is going to be really effective against your Warrior. And now it's going down to the part where, like, what will I pick on both sides? I feel like Druid's a pretty reasonable shot.
Yeah.
The only problem is if he picks Paladin, how do you answer his Paladin class?
This is going to be really risky for Tides, and there's a lot of matchups that he can go into that are going to be pretty rough. On the other hand, Zalae, do you think he just goes with the Warrior? I mean, it's
I don't know.
he went with the Warrior almost every
I
single
would
time
not solely
yesterday.
because he has he's got Paladin.
Paladin?
Like, if Tides picks Paladin, which I'm leaning towards, then well, I don't think you should pick Warrior at all. Like that sounds like a really bad idea.
So handlock, but yesterday Zalae was in positions where handlock might have been the better choice, but he went with Warrior every time just because it seems like he seems like he's more comfortable with that deck as a whole. But handlock would probably be, well, it's hard to say because all of his matchups are a little bit rough because if he knows that Tides is going to pick Paladin, or if he thinks that Tides is going to pick Paladin, what would be his best choice in the situation? Because Warrior, no.
Well, Warrior, no, because he can grind you out.
Handlock,
Still iffy.
rough. Druid, rough.
Iffy.
Yeah, so he's got to come up with something.
Druid does have a pretty good chance sometimes to just burst Paladin out of the game.
Okay.
But now he knows that he's running heals. It's going to be a Warrior versus Warrior.
Whoa.
So Tide's opting to go for it, and I think that second big game hunter will definitely be a high impact here.
Yeah, and since we are in blind pick phase, that the score is 2-1. It's just not reflected on the scoreboard just yet. But either way, Tides is one game away from moving on to the semifinal round today, and Zalae has to win this game just to stay alive. He's got to win 2 in a row here. In the blind pick phase, that can be a little tough. A little tough.
It is, and I think it just brings another dimension of like how you can read your opponents, and you have a general view of how things go.
Yeah.
This is where hiding information, like, you know, I don't think either players saw each other's Ironbeak Owls, but that's like something that you might come into play here because you weren't expecting it. So Tides is up 2-1. If he just wins this game, he moves on to the semifinals and gets reinvited back for next week. If Zalae wins this, he ties it up, sends it to Game 5. And looks like we're going to kick things off Warrior versus Warrior, and Zalae is going to be the one going first. Generally speaking, do you like going first or second in the Warrior mirror?
I like going first.
I asked TJ because he's played a lot of Control Warrior.
Yeah, I like going first because I like being the one who's sort of dictating the pace. But at the same time, the coin offers sort of that same choice because it allows you to get the spike a little bit quicker. It allows you to put out a higher impact creature for one turn a little bit quicker. But a lot of warrior versus warrior is just armoring up for the first turn, waiting for your opponent to make a move. It's a game of chicken. Who's going to make the first move first? Because you don't want to... If you throw out the Armor Smith early, then your opponent can just Armor Smith, and it's basically just Fire War Axe to Armor Smith, Fire War Axe to Armor Smith, and in the end it just comes down to even. But if you wait too long to get your Armor Smith out, if that's going to be your play, then it's just going to get Death Bite. So it gets to the point where if neither player has like a turn 2 play, then neither player wants to make a move. Neither player wants to put a card out. They don't want to be the first ones to do it. Sledge Belcher, I think, is a good play, and this is where the coin comes into handy. If you're in that situation where neither player has a play for the first 4 turns, being able to put a Sledge Belcher out first puts your opponent in a really awkward situation, where they either have to play a Sledge Belcher too, or like attack in with the first charge of Death Bite, which doesn't feel great.
Sure. Makes sense. Well, Tides here is going to respond very aggressively, trying to see if he can chop down the board, and then Acolyte can be hidden behind something else. He has to use a Silence, in which case it enables other cards like Sylvanas later on.
Yep.
Oh, Harrison Jones.
That's pretty convenient, but
Bad.
I don't know if you want to do that just yet.
You think so? It's better to save it for his Death Bite and do something else this turn?
Yeah. Well, the only other thing that you can do this turn is just
Yeah, it is awkward
Shield
on the
Maiden.
mana.
Yeah. And then your Harrison Jones could just die next turn to a Death Bite, and you wouldn't be gaining much momentum either. Well, you would just be getting a card draw, which doesn't feel great.
Really? I like having the card draw. It's just because Death Bite's still gonna do stuff.
Yeah.
And you're killing like a full card because you kill off the second charge of a weapon and the first charge of it. So it's like it's equivalent to killing a full card. You draw a card, so it's pretty awesome in my opinion.
I just don't like that it makes it so. Well, I guess next turn he would have a turn 7 play no matter what he played, because he has the Baron Geddon. But Baron Geddon is not like an automatic turn 7 play. You have to. The board state matters when you're playing Baron Geddon. So it would have meant next turn he would have to play like a Shield Maiden and still be floating 1 mana. So it would just set up a bunch of awkward turns.
Well, this is an awkward turn because now he gets more draws off of his Acolyte of Pain, and like the perfect challenge as well.
I would actually have liked to see the Harrison Jones more than this play.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Because what if his opponent had Harrison Jones?
Yeah.
It's like,
then he gets infinite value out of that Acolyte.
Right. Well, I guess he sets up the Fiery War Axe, starts chopping down. Well, this is really inconvenient.
He plays Baron Geddon. It just gets traded in.
Right. That's
Maiden.
not the right play here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
He plays Shield Maiden, then he could kill it while preserving his own Shield Maiden.
But then it gets killed on the board, and even worse, there's a way to back it up.
Yeah.
Oh wow, Baron Geddon. Shield Maiden for Baron Geddon is excellent value, especially since Tides drew a card doing this.
Yes. He still got value out of that Acolyte of Pain because he was able to draw 2 cards with that, plus the health gain from the Shield Maiden, and just being able to take down that Baron Geddon straight out. The one thing that Tides may not expect is double BGH, because he only saw 1 BGH from the last series.
True.
But I don't think that really plays into too much effect now, because the only threats that Warriors usually run that are BGHable are, well, I guess Alex draws it too. So, but Tides doesn't really run too many. I don't think he runs Rag anymore, and he has Ysera in his deck.
Tides?
Yeah, Tides.
Okay. Well, Ragnaros is something relevant too. See how he responds to his opponent's Shield Maiden. I have to imagine that it's not the same as what we expected from the past, where it's like Shield Maiden just gets a lot of really powerful value against his opponent.
Yes, it does.
Yep. I like it too. Just setting it up so that way Shield Maiden gets either trades in, or even if he picks it off easily, the whirlwind effect trickles it so that way he can pick it off easier too.
Yeah, so either way,
Right.
either the Sludge Belcher or the remaining slime is going to be able to challenge the...
It's a good way to look at the matchup too, because it's like I'm using Fiery War Axe to set up for value plays, as opposed to like expecting Deathbite to do all the heavy lifting for weapons.
You can pretty easily telegraph what your opponent's going to do in a warrior versus warrior matchup. So you can set up for plays without worrying about the risk involved of your opponent doing something that you're not going to expect. Like we saw yesterday in handlock versus handlock mirrors, which we saw a lot of yesterday, that players would make risky moves by trying to set up for a future play.
Right.
But handlock just has so many ways to manipulate a board that it's harder to do that. Whereas warrior versus warrior, like you can set up a good trade by Fiery War Axing something down into range without worrying about your opponent being able to do any tricky plays.
Oh, well, he picks up a nice draw off of the Acolyte. Oh, he chooses to armor up instead.
Huh, okay. Well, he preserves the shield maiden a little bit, and this is a nuisance. It's a nuisance.
Yeah, it really is.
So how do you deal with this easily? You either have to use a Cruel Taskmaster, you don't want to use an Execute, you don't want to throw a weapon into it again because you just did that. I guess you could, but...
Well, you can use the combination of what you said. Cool Taskmaster, kill off the 5-1.
Yeah.
Just control the board. This is where Harrison Jones can make a pretty significant impact, though.
Sort of swing the tempo back in your favor just a bit. Get
Oh,
rid of
yeah,
a lot
absolutely.
of plays for the next turn. If he was setting up for anything with that Deathbite, it removes that opportunity.
This is perfect for Harrison.
Yes, it
Harrison
is.
plus Sludge Belcher. The alternative is to Harrison and then use the Fiery War Axe and kill off the Cool Task. But I think it's okay to play Sludge Belcher here.
Yeah. Has he been through both? He's been through both Deathbites. No?
Who?
Tides.
I don't think so. I think he actually
Okay.
went through his first just now.
Okay.
Yeah, Zalae likes to play this really slow. Not even gonna drop his, not gonna even drop.
Nearly every
The
single
armor
warrior
smith.
game he played yesterday went to fatigue.
Right.
And warrior versus warrior matchup, if one player can't get like overwhelming control early on, then most of the time it goes to fatigue. Like the only way you can not have it go to fatigue is if you, well, not the only way, but one of the ways that I feel like warrior versus warrior matchup goes is one player just draws into like all their threats really quickly. Like they can Alexstrasza right on turn 9, keep the armor low, Alexstrasza right on turn 9, and then be able to Grommash like immediately after. But if that doesn't end it, then it usually drags on.
Well, Tide's trying to see if he can bait us removal. This is where Big Game Hunter also becomes really relevant too. Although these boom bots are problematic, so as much as you do have the removal lined up, it is pretty annoying.
Well, you can take out one boom bot
Yeah, with the weapon.
before you BGH, which lowers the chance.
It does lower the chance, but it's still a little messy. You don't want to shred too much of the armor. Might be tempted to play Armor Smith.
Okay. What about Shield Slam?
Yeah, I mean, you Shield Slam Dr. Boom, and then you can
And then clear
play
one
the
on
Armor Smiths and attack the Boom Bots and even play Sludge Belcher afterwards. Seems a reasonable play.
Yep.
Like, these Armor Smiths aren't going to be doing much the longer you hold on to them. Yeah, this seems the most reasonable to me.
Throwing out those armor
But he's
smiths.
probably going to armor up instead of... Oh, okay. Well, I was like, well, if it's true to his pattern, he's going to armor up in between those. But
Hiding the armor smiths behind Sludge Belcher is some of the best value you can get from
ooh,
that.
I forgot about this card.
Yeah. He throws some interesting cards in here. He plays Sneeds and Ysera over
Right.
other big threats.
Even if Sneeds gets silenced, it's
Still
a
big
little
body.
bit bigger version of Sylvanas, which controls the state of the board.
Yeah. And then you're drawing out Silence. So to where you can throw out your Sylvanas and be more confident
Right.
that it's going to get going to be more effective.
Okay, well, this has to get silenced. There's no way you can allow that to go on. And this is where Sneeds is actually really useful, because in the control mirrors, how do you deal with this effectively? Because then now you don't have any silence for Sylvanas.
But it's really, I think, only good in control versus control, because it's just way too slow.
What now?
I mean,
Because
sometimes it is. Sometimes you can do other stuff too.
Well, we saw, what are the cards that you're sacrificing to take Sneeds out in Rag? And Rag is slow as well, but at least it has an immediate impact on the board, and the body's bigger. I guess it's not susceptible to BGH, which is a big deal. But yesterday we saw Bunny Muffins run Sneeds, and he just never even had an opportunity to play it because it was so slow in any matchup besides control versus control.
It is a big deal, though, the fact that it can't get swung by BGH here.
Yeah.
Because we see that double BGH not really helping at the moment. It will when Alex draws and all these other minions come out. Now he's got to make a decision if he's got to silence this, or he's just going to let it go. He's determined.
Okay. It's hard to spectator
Oh.
mode to end the turn before. Okay, well he just goes ahead and attacks it.
Interesting.
Uh-oh.
Very interesting.
We haven't seen the Sneeds.
What is that telegraph to Tides? Like, what does that show you? It's like, well, all I had was an armor up and a weapon attack.
I don't think that really...
So it's like, if he had Alex Straza of some sort, he'd definitely play it there, right?
Yeah. Because you can now Straza and chip away at armor.
So his hand has to be really reactive, in which case Tides might be thinking he might have Brawl, or he might have like Execute lined up, so that way after Legendary pops he can execute it. Either way, it's something that's like you have to consider, because this is so weird now. Oh boy, 2 targets which you want to silence.
It's going to force him to make a choice here. It's a really, really tough choice. Because there's a possibility that he could get another Sylvanas from the Sneeds.
You're right. I mean, Sneeds could also be as innocent as just Tink Master Overspark.
Yeah, or a Nat Pagel.
Yeah, even Pagel's annoying in a sense, but
Yeah.
there's a pretty high chance that Sneeds gets something of value, like a Hogger or Cairn.
Yeah. Well,
Sneeds can also get Kale of the Zod, which activates Sneeds again.
the cycle of Sneeds. The endless.
We will Sneed, they will die.
So I think Sylvanas would. I don't even know. It's so hard to choose.
Yeah, at this point, I'm like, I gotta be honest here. I don't know the optimal play.
Yeah.
Because it's like, this scenario is just choose your poison. I think you definitely want to silence the Sneeds.
Okay.
Because that takes preference over, because at least Sylvanas gives like a creature that might not matter, like the owl.
Yeah. I'm a little disappointed. I don't think we'll see what Sneeds is going to bring out.
I'm not disappointed at all.
I just want to see what Sneeds is going to give.
This is not a board you brawl, right? You're in such a strong advantage.
No, and if your Sylvanas dies, I mean, what are you going to steal? Either a weakened Sledge Belcher or an Iron Beak Howl? There's nothing good that you want to steal here.
Yeah, this is actually start getting complicated here. I wonder if Alex Straza can come down this board now. Because
else
it's
is he
like,
gonna do?
he's proven that he doesn't have a clear way to deal with these minions.
Yeah.
And that might, maybe he's saving removal. But, I don't know.
Ysera sort of feels like that checkmate card in Warrior vs. Warrior matchup.
Yeah, it's definitely a
just sort
great
of
way to catch up in card advantage.
Yeah. I see a lot of players save the Ysera to like the very end until all the removal's gone.
Yeah, I think Alex Straza can come down here.
Yeah.
He's going to gain a lot of armor, but you're expecting him to play removal. And as long as you have Brawl with Sylvanas, you still have the final say. So he's going to be gaining like 13 health. Uh-oh. Guys, running out of time. Lol.
He didn't get it. no.
It sort of makes a difference, not really. Like Sylvanas is still high impact.
Yep.
The only difference is that he'll probably lose one more armor here. Okay, so Big Game Hunter is like, this is the board, right? This is like the target. Like, you have 2 BGHs. Oh, he's going to trade down the board first. Okay. Well, in this scenario, it actually doesn't matter then if he killed it off, because Sylvanas was going to kill it too.
Yeah. This is a pretty good way to deal with it, though. Yep. He gained a lot of armor from that. He just got Alex Strazed, and he's already back up at 33 effective HP.
Jeez, man.
So Alex Strazed basically didn't do much in that situation, but it put a big threat on the board. It got out the BGH.
Right. Still no shield block. Oh, that's a pretty decent draw. Start clearing out these minions too.
But both these players' hands are pretty reactive, maybe with the exception of the Rag, but he doesn't want to throw that out too quickly because he still hasn't seen so much removal. But at the same time, you can't wait forever for the removal to come out. Eventually, you're going to have to start eating it up with something.
You might be able to wait it out. Depends on like the state of the game. Like, even though it's hard to see, both these guys actually have very similar health counts.
Yeah. You can. It'll be a little bit harder for your opponent later on to gauge whether or not he can afford to use the removal. So usually saving the huge threats until really late in the game, and that's sort of where
Ragtime. Oh, okay. Sorry.
I don't know. Well, there he draws a brawl, which is okay. But I find myself in the position when I'm playing in the Control Warrior Mirror matchup where I'm always afraid to use my brawl because I think that I'm going to get better value out of it the longer that I hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ends up you get so deep into the game where you end up just not using the brawl at all.
There's a Whirlwind Ysera turn.
Yep.
I think he's realizing like he most likely has some kind of removal for it, but Ysera is gonna still like if he draws like an Emerald Drake, still a pretty strong minion to deal with.
Or a Laughing Sister.
I mean, is that so bad?
No.
How do you deal with the Laughing Sister? With like you have to use the second iteration of Death's Bite. It's still pretty annoying. No doubt that he has to execute this. If he feels like saving the cool Taskmaster, he can even use his own Fiery War Axe.
I would just use the Fiery War Axe. I like Ysera.
It's reasonable.
Ysera is such a risky card to put in your deck in this format, but such a great card when you can in the control versus control mirror, because you're always going to get something out of it, and it's really slow. But like I said, in the control versus control matchup, even just having baiting out removal and being able to get one swing card from Ysera, one of those dream cards, can be such a big deal. Because even Ysera Awakens is a really great card for Warrior vs. Warrior, because it's an activator for Grommash, and also can be a little bit of extra burst that your opponent isn't expecting.
I don't mind Laughing Sister here either. Nope. Just start armoring up again.
You said it before. How do you deal with that?
It's not that easy. You have to use Death's Bite and Cruel Taskmaster. That's like another weapon that you don't like. You want to use it on something else.
And if you don't deal with it, it's just gonna chip away your armor.
Well, you're gonna have to deal with it.
Yeah.
The alternative is to play Ragnaros.
That seems like a better alternative.
You think so?
Yeah. With
no Alex Strazed in hand, if the Ragnaros misses, it's just over damage. Or sorry, it's overkill, because if you hit him, he's gonna dip to 24 health.
At the same time, do you really want to use Death's Bite and Cruel Taskmaster?
No, you already have Grommash in hand.
Yeah, you need to hold on.
No,
to
it misses.
Yikes!
No, that's not very good. Because Tides has an answer now. Cruel Taskmaster execute. And more importantly, he's back at square one. Like, this is why I didn't like the Rag play, because it's like he has to Cruel Taskmaster and deal with the board, but he still actually doesn't have, like, he's losing more armor now for the turn. I mean, Sylvanas can come down, but that's fine. Like, Sylvanas still dies to a product of your Sarah. Or even Silence. But,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I don't know if it's worth... Oh, maybe it is, because you have Fire War Axe.
I think it might be.
Yeah, this Laughing Sister actually is pretty problematic. You can't Shield Slam or execute it.
The Laughing Sister dream.
That's definitely in my fantasy for sure. How do you go about this now? It's like you're expecting Rag to do a lot more than that. I mean, Zalae looks like he's looking for his post-its or something on his desk. It's like, what do I do if Rag misses? It's like, oh right, concede.
That can't be right. Well, he can go with the play that you said last turn, Despite and Cruel Taskmaster, but then he's pretty much out of activators for Gromish.
Brawl.
Brawl! Oh no.
Wow.
If the Laughing Sister lives, then that's just ridiculous.
That doesn't feel good.
Oh!
No! I don't know. You were using 5 mana to try to remove
no.
5 mana.
Oh no.
Not even. Even if one of his minions survived, you'd at best remove 3 mana off the board. Oh, and actually, I guess your minion would survive, so.
And now, once again, he's back at square one for the next turn, except this time, he's down a Brawl, down an Acolyte of Pain, down a Rag. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's starting to, like, really pile on. Now, that could influence Tides or Zalae is how many cards are remaining in deck. I really feel like both of them are getting very close to fatigue. It's 4 cards versus 4 cards.
Okay.
Okay, Shield Maiden can take the hit, and she most certainly will, but I mean, this Laughing Sister is still going to just sit there and chip away. Oh man, great draw from Tides as well.
This Laughing Sister, I think, has lived a good life, and it'll still continue to live on.
She's not dying, like, because Zalae has refused to kill her, and like this Laughing Sister's already done 9 damage, and will maybe even 12 if he chooses to attack it right now.
This Laughing Sister could very well live till the end of the game. Well, Dr. Boom is pretty good. It's a threat.
No time for games.
Yeah, but then silence on the Sylvanas is what Tides
Pretty devastating. Armorsmith isn't terrible, because it puts another body on the board.
Yeah, I think you can silence and then use your weapon with Laughing Sister. Keep the
higher power creature
yeah.
on the board.
Oh, he's gonna use Shield Slam number 2. That was something that I wasn't sure about, but keeping this much power on the board is pretty significant. And you know what? It actually like without it, he wouldn't be threatening to chip off the entire armor next turn. So I think this is actually also okay.
He's not expecting double Brawl, but I don't think he really thinks Zalae is playing it. If he did some scouting yesterday, he would have seen that Zalae did not play double Brawl, at least in the Challenger Finals. But he can always change it up.
The onus is on Zalae to produce a way to deal with this board.
Yes,
and
it is.
Like his best bet, because he hasn't opted to develop. Well, first of all, that Laughing Sister did way too much damage. But second of all,
It's still doing damage, Rodan.
Exactly. If he chooses to play Deathbite now, it's an investment over the course of 2 turns, which he might not be able to make because he's getting so close to fatigue. So like Dr. Boom feels like it's the best play here, but it's so easy for it to just get hit by Armorsmith, hit like one of those minions for like 1 or 2 damage, kill off the other one, and it hits the face, and like he's again back at square one where it's like these minions don't really do much.
And he's just staring down these creatures on the board that he's gonna chip away all his armor next turn.
Okay, he's gonna execute the Shield Maiden.
This is okay, but at the same time, he's still in a similar situation. And
Oh!
wow,
Dang.
that's rough.
So I suppose you want to try to trigger things first, though, not get too trigger happy here.
Yeah.
Also, that's like a time to play it, right? I know he hasn't played Alexstrasza yet, but in the back of your mind, you're like, well, that's almost as good as it gets for swing on the board, right?
What else would you do to deal with the Dr. Boom this turn?
I don't know.
Brawl?
No. Is it Brawl?
That's what he's...
Oh, Baron
oh, no,
Kid.
okay.
Okay. Oh, that's something we didn't consider, too.
No, it's not.
I like it. Of course, if the booms just kill Baron Geddon,
then it'd be
that
not
could
worth.
be backfiring, but he's going to gain some
Alright.
armor in the process, too.
Oh yeah, base and Laughing Sister.
Wow, she served her duty. She did 15 damage. Okay, Alex is finally something, but that's where it's a final checkmate. You know, Tide's holding out on this this big game hunter for Alexstrasza is again for this very moment. Well played. Like honestly, this is a very good control mirror matchup, and I think Tide's showing why he's one of the most feared warrior players in the entire region.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree there. He's been an innovator for a long time with the deck, and Golden Portrait versus no Golden Portrait.
Well, I mean, he actually can't deal with Baron Geddon, so he's going to be taking a lot of damage on the backswing.
Alexstrasza seems like his only play here,
Right.
and even then he's could be pretty certain that he'll just, well, maybe not die next turn, but even if he doesn't die, being able to chip away the rest of the armor, put a lot of damage on is probably going to be too much for him to handle. He's really thinking about it though, but I don't know what else he could possibly do in this situation.
So do you kill off Alexstrasza, or do you like trade Baron Geddon in?
BGH.
Because BGH does lose damage on the board because Baron's going to kill it.
Oh, that's very true.
You can trade in both here. Attack, and then you can like, I guess. Is there any way to silence Baron Geddon? Just shut him up. You don't have an activator either for Gromosh.
Baron Geddon. It's a turn later activator. That
This is
rhymed.
actually starting to get a little bit tricky. But Baron Geddon's also 7 damage to face here, 9 damage.
Well, they're even at health.
But it
So-
doesn't matter if you have the minion on board, right?
But would he have... Well, would he just throw down the Gromish with no activator after he...
Well, essentially what happens from this point on is Big Game Hunter becomes an 8 damage bomb. That's it. It's like, it might as well deal 8 damage to a minion. So, Gromosh... He's just gonna go all for it. Wow! That is so ballsy. But you know what?
Calculate the damage.
yeah,
There's no way that he could kill him that turn.
Yeah, it's like, how do you deal 25 damage? Oh, jeez.
Uh-oh.
That's a second Big Game Hunter.
Yes, it is.
But he's on fatigue damage. Like, he's actually just gonna straight up lose the race of time. So, like, the second Big Game Hunter is supposed to swing this matchup a lot,
Yeah,
but because it was the 30th card, that's pretty unlucky for him.
it is.
That was 5 cards up. This Baron Geddon would have died.
That's a big tech that you make too, because you're sacrificing usually a big card to put in that second Big Game Hunter. A lot of the times it's like a bigger threat that you're sacrificing later on.
Yeah, or you can like cut Whirlwind.
You can cut Whirlwind, but at the same time, Tides also cut Whirlwind, but instead put in like a Sneeds or a Ysera instead. So we sort of one-upped him there. And being the 30th card in his deck, he wasn't able to leverage his tech choice over Tides's.
I've got the beast in mind.
Yeah, he's got to use his weapon to start swinging too. It's like he's very behind the health race. Oh, wow. Oh my god, actually I'm totally taken aback by that.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm pretty sure Tides is in a very clear advantage from that point on.
it didn't look like either player was DCing on Skype or whatever. But
Yeah.
we'll see what the issue was. But it was looking pretty rough. If Zalae was able to get a couple swings in, I mean, the second Death Spike could have been an activator for Gromesh, but even then,
Right.
on fatigue damage next turn, he hit fatigue first, still would have been in a really rough position. And it's
Well,
a
as
lot
long
of,
as he gets the last hit in, right?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Tides actually doesn't have any more threats. Oh, he did get the swing in. So a little bit of a technical issue here.
Okay.
Okay, so then what does Tides do to answer this? Actually, something that's very relevant too is that he can have the final say in the swing, right?
Let the pain speak to me.
Oh, he's gonna brawl. It's his best way to deal with it.
No.
The big game hunter does survive. I mean, the acolyte's just really not gonna do much, anyways.
I don't know how he's gonna deal with this, because if he swings into the big game hunter here, then he's putting himself at.
He's got one more card in his deck.
Yeah. What is it? Wait, do both?
No, both of them? Oh, both of them are out. Wait,
All right.
what just happened?
That was Tides' last card, I think. Huh.
Wait, I'm very confused about what happened.
I think that was Tides' last card as well.
Oh.
And rejoining the spectator mode didn't put the cards in. And so he knew that Grommash would have been his last card. He had an activator for it, so he would have won the race because he would have had a 10 damage Grommash as opposed to a 4 damage Grommash. Even though he hit fatigue first, that big game hunter posed too much of a threat. It was only 2 turns that
he wouldn't have to activate Grommash. That was the big key.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually have a way to kill it.
Yeah.
So, wow. Well, actually, that ends up being the difference maker then. The big game hunter.
Yeah.
Against the Baron Geddon.
Doesn't matter if it's the 30th card in your deck.
So him tossing out the Grommash was him jumping the gun a little bit because he didn't expect him to have the second big game hunter.
Yeah.
The second big game hunter was the thing that surprised Tides then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, wow. What a really close game there. I'm a little bit flustered about what just happened, but I guess we're gonna go into game number 5 in just a second and see who's gonna be able to advance here. And it does. I think all cards are out there on the table, so it's like up to Tides to really decide what deck he wants to play. Pretty sure it's very clear Zalae wants to stay on Warrior, but then another surprise would be like if Tides chooses to play Warrior again. It's like, well, I think I can line it up this time. And oftentimes the Warrior players have like a lot of pride on the line too, because it's like I don't lose the mirror.
Yeah. Well, Zalae, it seems like no matter what his opponent has his decks, no matter how the rest of the matchup has gone, he always defaults to that Warrior. But that changes now.
Oh wow!
Because he's going with the Druid, and he makes the choice, probably thinking that Tides is going to stick with his Warrior. And now this is a rough matchup for Tides.
That's a really bad matchup.
Especially the fast Druid with the Violet Teachers. That's tough for Warriors to be able to deal with.
Yeah, Tides re-queues up as Warrior. That's pretty bad news. And looks like Zalae might just simply get a win here, just because he's got such a strong matchup. Like it's very rare to see the Warriors beat the Druid here.
It's a really rough matchup. Warrior has really great matchups across the board now, I think. A lot of the cards that they got, especially in GVG, like Shield Maiden, shored up a lot of their bad matchups. And Druid is one of those decks that remains that still really beats Warrior. And especially, Tides' Warrior is a little bit slower. So, it's going to play against him even more now. Oh, and he actually doesn't cut the Whirlwinds. Oh, he's got one Whirlwind. Okay, that's right. From the last deck.
Alright, well, Druid doesn't necessarily have that wild growth at the moment. But Tides does have ways to deal with a little bit early aggression. And then Druid doesn't really have the perfect curve yet.
Well, he's got Innervate, Spectral Knight into Violet Teacher.
Right. That's something pretty good. But after that, he still needs a little bit more.
That's true. Spectral Knight is one of the cards that's really tough for Warrior to be able to deal with, because it's essentially, a lot of the times it could be up to like 16 damage if you get 2 swings from it, plus having to chop it down with weapons.
Wow, Tides instant calls and he draws Ysera. Like you mentioned, it's a very greedy deck if it goes against the Warrior.
Yes, it is. Drawing into those big threats early against Druid is not going to help him, because every turn that you waste is just another more points of damage that the Druid's piling onto you, and closer that they're going to get to just being able to even just Savage Roar you down. And having to play a big threat on a turn and not being able to affect the board. is usually just a death sentence.
Oh. He actually does have a way to deal with
That's pretty good.
these minions now. Unfortunately, he just lost all of his armor. So Shield Slam is much less effective.
Okay.
How do you do this?
I wonder.
What do you prioritize getting rid of more? The Violet Teacher
I
or
personally
the
care
Spectral
about
Knight?
the Violet Teacher more just because of all the spells that can come out.
Yeah.
Oh, he's gonna try to coin Sylvanas
Okay.
next turn. So then, well, that hopefully that gives Zalae a window of opportunity where he can press in for damage.
He's got one piece of the combo here. Savage Roar would be pretty big, but he can no longer create those tokens. That's where that Iron Beak Owl draw really comes into play. Because that could be really threatening. He does have the Whirlwind, but still, it's Violet Teacher just poses too much of a threat in that situation. Because even if you Whirlwind down the tokens one turn, if you can't remove the Wild Teacher, the Violet Teacher just can make more and more. And if Sylvanas comes down, that Shade could end up being not a liability, but it could make for some awkward plays to try and remove this Sylvanas efficiently.
Yeah, and that's where, like, if Keeper of the Grove comes off the top, it's gonna be a very painful exchange here. Almost might seal the game right there.
No. Okay.
Now, what about the very cute Force of Nature to try and give Sylvanas a bad target of stealing?
It's possible. I might even think about just ignoring the Sylvanas, but that always is just has backfire written all over it.
Right. Because Brawl might be following it up.
Yeah. Force of Nature would be the safest option to go for here, but at the same time, that's inherently risky as well, because you're still not guaranteeing that the Sylvanas isn't going to steal something high priority.
I think Zalae's really thinking about it too, because I don't think you can ignore her. I don't think you can ignore her.
Waits for no one.
If he had like a Savage Roar in his hand, maybe,
And
but
if
even
this,
then,
if this takes like a really important minion, oh, it did take one of the tutus.
that's pretty good. Pretty good. And now
That's
he's
really good.
Now he's still able to pile on more damage. 16 health he's at.
Okay, well, Tides to stabilization now. He drew a weapon. In fact, he's got. I guess he's just thinking about whether or not he can get away with Acolyte, but he might have to armor up.
Yeah, he can armor up Shield Slam next.
Oh, he doesn't have enough mana to do it.
Yeah,
It's too bad.
too
Okay.
bad indeed. Boy decides to develop the weapon instead.
Well, no, he needs to kill off the Shade.
Oh, I was
And
thinking
then
he could
now
just armor
Dr.
up
Boom
Shield
comes
Slam.
out, and you're like, well, that was a fun game, I suppose.
He's at 15 effective health right now. It's wow. I wouldn't even think about it. Just psh, there you go. Throw it down. Throw that sucker down. Tides just gives it a little chuckle. Baron getting is very risky, because there is
Well, I don't think you can Baron here. You might die.
That's
it's just
true.
Sludge Belcher.
Sludge
Taunt
Belcher
up.
armor up.
I think you might power the Wild in this scenario. Oh! Black Knight.
Wow.
Wow.
This
Pretty sure that's game right here.
off the top, yep.
And you do power the Wild there.
Yes, you do.
And the only card that can save Tides is a Brawl at this stage. Maybe not even. And it looks like the 2-1 lead has evaporated just because of a great switch from Zalae to try to catch the Warrior off the Druid.
That's a fantastic read, and there's nothing that he can get from this that's gonna save him.
Yep, don't think so. I think Tides might just play it out.
Well played.
And wow, Zalae moves on to the semifinals and takes out Tides of Time.
That's a pretty big win for Zalae, and it's not what I expected after seeing the first couple of games in that series. Tide seemed like he had really good control over the matches. It seemed like he was making all the right choices, but that Warrior matchup came down to the very last card in that Big Game Hunter tech that he threw in. Even though it was Zalae's 30th card, it still was enough to swing that matchup, and then making the call, making the read to switch to Druid, predicting that Tides would stay on the Warrior. It's pretty good read.
Yeah, you know, most people don't capitalize on that
Yeah.
format. They usually play based off what it is. And again, it's something that I'm really interested in, is like, why didn't Tides have faith in his Paladin deck? And maybe it's like it's just too slow, in his opinion, for anything else. And if he did really good against in the first two games, but we saw a reverse 3-0 with 3 different decks. It's like he won with his Druid, he won with his Warrior, and then finished out with the Druid. But it was like 3 different matchups which he had to win. So overall, well done. And Zalae is going to be moving on. Let's take a look at the bracket. Tides is out for today, which means another person. I pegged him as one of the favorites to potentially get into the finals, but looks like his run will end here. Up next, we have Kibler versus Dark Wanix. That should be an interesting one as well. And the winner of that will advance to play Zalae.
Yeah, Kibler was actually finished top 2 in one of our previous weeks, was supposed to come back next week, but wasn't able to due to some prior engagements. But we will get to see him this week. Dark Wanix, he's a player that's been around for a really long time in the competitive Hearthstone scene, so we'll see who's going to come out on top in that matchup.
All right. Well, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors at Newegg, Western Digital, Crucial, as well as Cooler Master. You can check out all their cool stuff at esl.gg/Newegg Esports. You can do that while we take a quick break. When we come back, our second series of the day here at the Legendary Series.